Hey everybody. Yesterday we started reading The Hundred Dresses. In this story, it talked about three main characters, Peggy, Maddie, and Wanda, and their relationship as the story unfolded. Now, Wanda has been absent for a few days, and people are starting to notice, especially Peggy. I wonder why she's starting to notice this so much. Think about that as we continue through the story. Today, in a bright blue chapter, I want you to think Maddie has a memory of a bright blue day in October. As you read the chapter about this memory, ask yourself, why would the author have Maddie remember this day now that Wanda had been absent for several days? Why is this important? As we also continue to read throughout this chapter, I'd like you to think if you learn anything new about Maddie, Peggy, or Wanda. If you do, you're going to go back to the 100 dresses in Seesaw and add to each one of their dresses. Also, think, do any of these characters remind you of somebody that you know, whether it be Wanda, Peggy, or Maddie? Think on that as we continue. Also, if you would rather read the text yourself, you're welcome to mute the video at this point and just read yourself as I read through the text. A bright blue day. Somehow Maddie could not buckle down to work. Thinking about that, what do you think that means, buckle down to work? She sharpened her pencil, turning it around carefully in the little red sharpener, letting the shavings fall in a neat heap on a piece of scrap paper, and trying not to get any of the dust from the lead on her clean arithmetic paper. A slight frown puckered her forehead. In the first place, she didn't like being late to school, and in the second place, she kept thinking about Wanda. Somehow, Wanda's desk, though empty, seemed to be the only thing she saw when she looked over to that side of the room. How had the 100 dresses game begun in the first place? She asked herself impatiently. It was hard to remember the time when they hadn't played that game with Wanda. Hard to think all the way back from now, when the 100 dresses was like the Daily Dozen, to then, when everything seemed much nicer. Oh, yes, she remembered. It had begun that day when Cecily first wore her new red dress. Suddenly, the whole scene flashed swiftly and vividly before Maddie's eyes. It was a bright blue day in September. No, it must have been October, because when she and Peggy were coming to school, arms around each other and singing, Peggy had said, "You know what? This must be the kind of day they mean when they say October's bright blue weather." Maddie remembered that because afterwards it didn't seem like bright blue weather anymore, although the weather had not changed in the slightest. As they turned from shady Oliver Street into Maple, they both blinked, for now the morning sun shone straight in their eyes. Besides that, bright flashes of color came from a group of a half a dozen or more girls across the street. Their sweaters and jackets and dresses, blues and golds and reds, and one crimson one in particular, caught the sun's rays like the bright pieces of glass. A crisp, fresh wind was blowing, swishing their skirts and blowing their hair in their eyes. The girls were all exclaiming and shouting, and each one was trying to talk louder than the others. Maddie and Peggy joined the group in the laughing and the talking. "Hi, Peg. Hi, Maddie," they were greeted warmly. "Look at Cecily." What they were all exclaiming about was the dress that Cecily had on, a crimson dress with cap and socks to match. It was a bright new dress and very pretty. Everyone was admiring it and admiring Cecily. For long, slender Cecily was a toe dancer and wore fancier clothes than most of them, and she had her black satin bag with her precious white satin ballet slippers slung over her shoulders. Today was the day for her dancing lesson. Maddie sat down on the granite curbstone to tie her shoelaces. She listened happily to what they were saying. They all seemed especially jolly today, probably because it was such a bright day. Everything sparkled. Way down at the end of the street, the sun shimmered and turned on silver the blue water of the bay. Maddie picked up a piece of broken mirror and flashed a small circle of light edged with rainbow colors onto the houses, the trees, and the top of the telegraph pole. And it was then that Wanda had come along with her brother Jake. They didn't often come to school together. Jake had to get to school very early because he helped old Mr. Henney, the school janitor, with the furnace or raking up the dry leaves or other odd jobs before school opened. Today he must be late. Even Wanda looked pretty in this sunshine, and her pale blue dress looked like a piece of the sky in summer, and that old gray toboggan cap she wore, it must be something Jake had found, looked almost jaunty. Maddie watched them absent-mindedly as she flashed her piece of broken mirror here and there, and only absent-mindedly she noticed Wanda stop short when they reached the crowd of laughing and shouting girls. "Come on," Maddie heard Jake say. "I gotta hurry. I gotta get the doors open and ring the bell." You go the rest of the way, said Wanda. I want to stay here. Jake shrugged and went on up Maple Street. Wanda slowly approached a group of girls. With each step forward, before she put her foot down, she seemed to hesitate for a long, long time. She approached the group as a timid animal might, ready to run if anything alarmed it. Even so, Wanda's mouth was twisted into the vaguest suggestion of a smile. She must feel happy too, because everybody must feel happy on such a day. As Wanda joined the outside fringe of girls, Maddie stood up too and went over close to Peggy to get a good look at Cecily's new dress herself. She forgot about Wanda, and more girls kept coming up, enlarging the group and all exclaiming about Cecily's new dress. Isn't it lovely? Said one. Yeah, I have a new blue dress, but it's not as pretty as that, said another. My mother just bought me a plaid, one of the Stuart plaids. I got a new dress for dancing school. I'm going to make my mother get me one just like Cecily's. So nice, pretty image. Maybe the girls coming together to talk. I think this is Cecily here in her red crimson dress. Everyone was talking to everybody else. Nobody said anything to Wanda, but there she was, a part of the crowd. The girls closed in a tighter circle around Cecily, still talking all at once and admiring her, and Wanda was somehow enveloped in the group. Nobody talked to Wanda, but nobody even thought about her being there. Maybe, though, Maddie, remembering what had happened next, maybe she figured all she'd have to do was say something and she'd really be one of the girls. And this would be an easy thing to do because all they were doing was talking about dresses. Maddie was standing next to Peggy. Wanda was standing next to Peggy on the other side. All of a sudden, Wanda impulsively touched Peggy's arm and said something. Her light blue eyes were shining and she looked excited like the rest of the girls. What? Asked Peggy, for Wanda had spoken very softly. Wanda hesitated a moment and then she repeated her words firmly. I got 100 dresses home. That's what I thought you said. 100 dresses. 100? Peggy's voice raised itself higher and higher. Hey, kid, Shield, that girl's got 100 dresses. Silence greeted this, and the crowd, which had centered around Cecily and her new finery, now centered curiously around Wanda and Peggy. The girls eyed Wanda, first incredulously, then suspiciously. 100 dresses, they said. Nobody could have 100 dresses. I have, though. Wanda has 100 dresses. What are they then? Where are they then? In my closet. Oh, you don't wear them to school? No, for parties. Oh, you mean you don't have any everyday dresses? Yes, I have all kinds of dresses. Why don't you wear them to school? For a moment, Wanda was silent to this. Her lips drew together. Then she repeated stolidly, as though it were a lesson learned in school. 100 of them all lined up in my closet. Oh, I see, said Peggy, talking like a grown-up person. The child has 100 dresses, but she wouldn't wear them to school. Perhaps she's worried of getting ink or chalk on them. With this, everybody fell to laughing and talking at once. Wanda looked stolidly at them, pursing her lips together, wrinkling her forehead up so that the gray toboggan slipped way down on her brow. Suddenly, from down the street, the school bell rang its first warning. Oh, come on, hurry, said Maddie, relieved. We'll be late. Goodbye, Wanda, said Peggy. Your 100 dresses sound beautiful. More shouts of laughter greeted this, and off the girls ran, laughing and talking and forgetting. Wanda and her 100 dresses, forgetting until tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, when Peggy, seeing her coming to school, would remember and ask her about the 100 dresses. For now Peggy seemed to think a day was lost if she had not had some fun with Wanda, wanting the approving laughter of the girls. Yes, that was the way it all begun, the game of the 100 dresses. It had all happened so suddenly and unexpectedly, with everybody falling right in, that even you felt uncomfortable as Maddie had. There wasn't anything you could do about it. Maddie wagged her head up and down. Yes, she repeated it herself. That was the way it began. That day, that bright blue day. And she wrapped up her shavings and went to the front of the room to empty them in the teacher's basket. Okay, so just like we talked about at the very beginning of the story, did you learn anything new about Maddie, Peggy, or Wanda? I'd like you to go back right now and add at least one new thing that you learned about each one of these girls to their specific dress in the seesaw account. Also, did anybody come to mind when you think about Maddie, Peggy, or Wanda from your personal life that made you remember them? Okay, when we come to lesson today, be prepared. We're going to talk about some text that was a little bit more challenging. I even struggled with a few of the words, and we're going to take that text a little bit deeper. Also, we're going to talk about something called similes with some of the text today. So I want you to be thinking, if you know anything about similes, I think we're going to pull a couple of them out of the text today. Thanks so much.